Asia, Asia, Asia.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another webinar of the Asia Society working together with the Hong Kong Holocaust and Tolerance Center. It is truly our great honor today to have Dr. Edith Eva Eger with us, and she is in California, and Roland and I are in Hong Kong. Roland is the chairman of the Hong Kong Holocaust and Tolerance Center, with whom we have worked together over the last many years. I think we have already done something like 6 Holocaust survivors. I think this is a part of human history that ought to be remembered, so that hopefully our next generation will be better. And we're delighted that Roland has just taken over the chairmanship of the Hong Kong Holocaust and Tolerance Center. So with that, I'll turn over to you, Roland.
Thank you very much, Ronnie. And good morning from Hong Kong, and a very warm welcome to everyone joining us from all around the world. As this event today is really the first one of a new monthly webinar series on the Holocaust that features survivors and scholars and authors and government officials. And this year is particularly important for us because the Hong Kong Holocaust and Tolerance Center celebrates its 10th anniversary. And over the years, in our mission to educate people about the Holocaust, we've been reaching tens of thousands at different schools, at universities, and through events like this one today. But today's event is really, really special to us, and not only because it is in partnership with the Asia Society, with whom we've been working, as Ronnie mentioned, together so closely over the years, but mainly because of our amazing speaker, Dr. Edith Eger. If I may just give a brief bio without giving away too much of your story, just for our audience, so I will just make a very, very, very few remarks. Edith Eger was born in Košice, which was then part of Czechoslovakia in 1927. She was just a teenager in 1944 when she and her family were first forced into the Košice ghetto and later deported to Auschwitz. Her parents were murdered there, but Edith's bravery kept her and her sister alive. Toward the end of the war, Edith and other survivors were sent on a grueling death march, first to Mauthausen and then to the Gunskirchen concentration camps. Toward the end of the war, Edith, when the camp was liberated then, and when the war was over in May 1945, she had actually been left for dead. After the war, Edith went back to Czechoslovakia, where she also met the man she would marry. In 1949, she and her husband moved to the United States. In 1969, she received her degree in psychology from the University of Texas, El Paso. She became, throughout her career, a very accomplished psychologist, a renowned scholar, a specialist in the treatment of post-traumatic stress syndrome, as well as the author of 2 best-selling books, The Choice, which was published in 2017, and The Gift, which was published just last year. And they've been reviewed with amazing acclaim. So we are very immensely grateful to have you, Edith, with us today. And Dr. Eger is joining us from her home in California. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. 2 lovely men. And I know that we're going to have a good conversation, how we can unite and how can we build a human family so we can empower each other with our differences. I'm very happy to be alive and well at 93, and I will never, ever retire. I am very happy to do my work and my calling.
Thank you, Edith. It is truly our great honor to have you with us. I understand that you're now 93, and the sister with whom you survived together in the death camp and the death march is now 99 or 100. Are you still in touch with her?
I am, and I think when she came to America, she told somebody 1 year less than she actually was. I don't know why 1 year can make a difference in a woman's life, but in my calculation, she was 100 years old, January 23rd this year.
Wow. I understand that she has just survived COVID-19.
Yes, she sure did. She was in a hospital. She came home. She was just fine. Yeah, she's really amazing. She She's very beautiful. She calls me up and she tells me I'm gorgeous. You see,
Wow.
she was the pretty one, and my mother told me, I'm glad you have brains because you have no looks. So, children get a label in every family.
Well, Edith, I think you are very beautiful as well. So
Thank
we're
you.
delighted to see you with us. And by the way, do you still practice dancing today?
I practice as much as I can, yes, and the music that I like is the music that when I was liberated, I learned how to do the boogie boogie, and I did the big band. I
Wow.
am I am I'm really happy with Frank Sinatra and anybody in a big band. That's my music.
That's wonderful. Well, I
Yes.
saw you one time in an IMD event in Europe where when the Blue Daniel was played and you were walking on stage, and suddenly, not only were you waving your hand as if you are conducting the big band, you kicked your right leg and then it was all the way to your head. How do you do that at that time, 91, 993?
I was practicing all my life, and what you practice, you become better at it. So I was going to be prepared for the Olympics, and then Hitler had different ideas for me. But I love dancing, and I'm asking people, especially couples, to do the dance in marriage, how they can really give and take and tolerating differences.
You think that your training as a ballerina when you grew up and as an athlete had anything to do with your ability to survive during the difficult years of 1944-45?
I think I was very fortunate to discover that they could throw me in a gas chamber in a minute. They could beat me and torture me. But even today, I ask people have as much power over you as you allow them. They could never murder my spirit. So that's what I bring you. And my ballet master told me that I was built in such a way that all my ecstasy has to come from inside out. So
That
don't wait
sounds very,
for someone to make you happy. You make yourself happy.
that's very amazing. That sounds a little Asian, you know. I think the Chinese and the Japanese both have
Yeah,
a similar kind of
yeah.
outlook in life.
Very
And
Buddhist, yes.
so do you.
Thank you. I make a good Buddhist, yes. But I tell people to be a good listener, go be a compassionate listener. And don't ask questions and don't give advice, because that's what usually mothers do. Don't ask,
I'm
how are you? And don't say, why don't you?
I'm sorry, Edith. I have to ask you a few questions today.
Yes,
Edith, do you mind if we go back to 1944, 1945? You were sent to
yes,
the death camp and
yes.
you saw a man telling your parents to go one direction and you and your sister go the other direction. I understand that you follow your mother, but then that person told you not to do so. And was that Joseph Mengele?
Yes, yes. I followed my mother, and he grabbed me and said, you're going to see your mother very soon. She's just going to take a shower, and threw me on the other side, which meant life.
Well, when you see this man, did you feel that he was very evil, or is he just a more or less like an ordinary man on the street?
I think that he was actually kind, and explained to me in German that I'm going to see my mother very soon.
Do you think that he was
I
kind?
never forget his eyes. His eyes and my eyes met, and those eyes I will never forget. I was wearing a beautiful dress that my father made me, and it had two lovely little nuts,
Bows.
bows on it. And I think he was watching the bows And he probably thought maybe she's too young to die. I had all kinds of fantasies around that. But the fact is that he was the one who actually saved my life, because he could have just let me go with my mother
But he was also the one who sent your parents to death.
to the gas chamber. Yes.
And you said that you thought that he was a kind man. Have you changed your mind?
I I I I think there is evil in the world, but I don't think we're born to be evil. I think we learn to hate. And I know that these people were brainwashed and wearing a uniform, and I think that I was able to somehow think of them, that they were the prisoners, not me, that they were wearing a uniform and telling me that I'm cancer to society. So the hatred turned to pity.
That's
That's,
please.
yeah. And today I tell people, what you think, you create.
Do you, well, this is truly amazing that you turn from whatever to pity. Over the years, have you changed in your way you look at that man?
I pity him.
You
I
pity him.
pity that man because he gave up his freedom to lies, to lies. And the
You,
trouble is that people believe those lies. And
I
that's,
heard I heard you said one time that there is a Nazi in every one of us.
yes,
So there is a evil in every one of us that are
yeah.
perhaps learned. How do we prevent that from coming forward? And how do we make sure that the good in man should come forward?
It really begins when we are born. We have blue marbles and pink marbles. If you take a baby to the grocery store and cover it with the blue blanket, that child will get different attention than with the pink blanket. We pick up the little girls much more often. The same baby, different color. And I think it's very important the messages that we hear. There is no such thing as a bad girl or a bad boy. No, it's not who you are. You're beautiful. What you do, you separate the doing from the being. We're
So,
born good. We're born with love. We're born with passion. We're born with joy. And then we learn to hate and the us and them mentality.
you know, you're one of the very few survivors, probably, who is also a distinguished psychologist. So,
Yes,
your view of both history as well as your subsequent thoughts regarding this whole matter of the Nazism must be somewhat different uh, from many others. You mentioned that we learn to hate.
yes.
Is there any way we can prevent the next generation from learning to hate? And do you think that men and women have learned to hate more today than when you were a young girl?
Well, I am a kind of a romantic. I was 16 in Auschwitz, and I remember my boyfriend told me I have beautiful eyes and beautiful hands. So I would go to everyone and ask me, okay, I would ask them, tell me about my eyes, tell me about my hands, because if I survive today, then tomorrow I'm going to meet up with my boyfriend. Meet up with a boyfriend. We had our own book club. We were extremely serious in our younger years, very different than now. I had my own book club. I studied the interpretation of dreams by Freud, you know. So I think it's very important for the best thing, the children to have happy parents. Because children don't do what we say, they do what they see. I beg parents not to raise their voice. Children really shake when they need to really think before they say anything that the child would fear. The child needs to know that the world is a safe place.
You mentioned that when you grew up, you had book club and you were happy, you study, and you have been around for some time, Edith. And after seeing generations pass by, do you think that the young people today are any different from the generation of your days?
I think,
Are they better today?
well,
Are they
I
worse?
studied Latin. Let me tell you about my Latin teacher. And I'm going to say it the way I heard it. Tempora mutantur et nos mutamur in illis. Okay?
What does
We
that
are
mean?
changing. Life is changing and we change with the times. So different generations now are not better or worse. They're different. You see, I don't do rockin' and rollin'. No, I go back to the big band, and the young people call it supermarket music and elevator music. You know, I think if both of us can get together and not criticizing each other, putting down each other, but to be able to unite together and see how we can really find a way that there is a thesis, there is the antithesis, and there is a synthesis. That we can take the polarities, we can combine them and take the best of all possible worlds that we live with faith. Faith is different from beliefs. People say, I believe, I believe, I believe. And that doesn't impress me until I know what kind of life that person lives. So they don't say one thing and do another. I think it's very important for you as a father to show your children how you treat their mother. So love is not what you feel, is what you do. And your children look at you and say, I want to be just like him, because it's hard to love someone who you don't respect.
So do you see that? How do you think that today's young people? Oh, let me put it this way: what are your advice to the younger generation today?
Stay in school.
Stay in school.
Yes, stay in school and pick up as many papers as you can, because more doors open up for you. Go
Is it
to medical school.
is it okay to be electronically open the electronic book? Is that something acceptable?
Yeah, electronically, it's usually not for me. I don't know anything about electronically. I don't know anything. I'm retarded. But ask me about human behavior, and I'm going to, piano. I was made to work with people, not with things.
Very good.
That's
So
why we
as
call men thick-headed. Men always figure things out.
very
I
good,
talk from the heart.
very good. Well, do you think that there are some differences between men and women then?
Oh yes, that's why we get together. We can be good for each other, because you're thinking and I'm feeling, and we can put the two together. I can find the female in you, and you can find the male in me, and then we have good sex together, because we're not competing.
Wow.
It's not competing. It's not competition or domination. It's cooperation.
Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
You wrote about forgiveness.
Yes.
What do you say to those people who says that I cannot forgive? How do you help them?
I let them know that forgiveness is not that what you do for others. You give yourself a gift that you don't carry hate with you, because if you carry hate, you're still a prisoner. I refuse to give Hitler a posthumous victory. I go to Germany and I eat the Wiener Schnitzel and I love the people and I find people. A woman died and they asked her, why did you risk your life to save Jews? And the woman said, my father told me that's the right thing to do. You always find what you look for. I
Do you
look for people who are willing to commit themselves for the betterment of mankind.
well,
Look at
Edith,
Gandhi.
Gandhi,
Look at
yes,
Gandhi.
amazing man.
One person
Well, Edith,
wrote down.
you are Jewish. Do you think that religion has a role to play in society today?
I think there is good religion, and there is a religion that gives you order in your life, but there is religiosity that believes that if you're not like me, you're going to go to hell. That's not good religion. I think it's very important to examine what you're hearing in worship. That you're not, I am not against, I'm for a lot of things. I am for hopefully mingling together and get rid of the us and them mentality. But I can only speak for me, because when I told my sister that I want to go back to Auschwitz, she told me I'm an idiot. How could I even think about it? And to me, I had to go back to the lion's den and look at the lion in the face and reclaim my innocence. You have to have rage before you think of even forgiveness. You got to go through the rage. You got to go through the valley of the shadow of death. But some people get stuck in there.
What age were you when you went back to Auschwitz?
That's a good question.
Roughly?
40 years ago, so.
Somewhere in the 70s, I think. I was consulting with the American military. I
Okay.
helped Americans how to stay together as a family, how to be able to pull the wagon together and cooperate. I helped them to go to, when they went to the East, I helped those people. I forgot. It was, I think, in the 70s when I helped them to go to Africa, to go to the Middle East, and recognize that we were kind of in our midlife. And today, when I work with midlife people, they have a hard time being alone. They're really not feeling comfortable being with themselves. But the only one you're going to have for a lifetime is you. It's good to have self-love. It's good to have self-love and say in the morning, I love me. Self-love is self-care. It's not narcissistic.
I will come back to that point if I may, Edith. Let me ask you about your trip back to Auschwitz in the 70s. You were probably in your 40s, perhaps. What went through
Yes.
your head? What was the most strong, powerful feeling in you when you went back there after 30 years, perhaps?
One of the things I remember very clearly when I was in Auschwitz, I asked myself, does anyone knows I am here? I felt so alone. I was thrown out. I was just discarded. I think when I went back to Auschwitz, I would ask myself, how can good people do such things? And I read the book by Rabbi when bad things happen to good people, Rabbi Herschel. Anyway, but I tell you, while it's happening, I take you back to Auschwitz. Elie Wiesel said, I'll take you to the gate, but I don't take you inside. I'll take you inside, and I let you know what happens when good people do bad things and objectify people. And that's why I'm saying you have to look at the polarities. We have a lot of good within us, but we also learn. I had a boy, 14-year-old, and he was part of the white supremacy group. And he told me that America has to be white again, and he's going to kill all the Jews. And if I would have reacted, I would have taken him to the corner. I would have stepped on him and telling him, how dare you talk like that? I saw my mother going to the gas chamber. But
What do you do instead then? What do you do when you met that 14-year-old white supremacist boy?
Well, I tell you what I did. I have a God that sends people my way. And so I said, just a minute. And I asked God, what am I doing with this boy, God? And God told me, find the bigot in you. And I said, it's possible. It's no. I am not a bigot. I came to America in 1949, and I had to go to the colored bathroom after Nazi Germany and communist Russia. How did you think I feel? That there is racism. And I ended up marching with Martin Luther King. And I joined the NAACP. You see, so love is not what I feel, it's what I do. And that's what I do today. And you take the thesis, the antithesis, and you do the synthesis. And you take, just like a smorgasbord, it's how you create the world that we respect each other.
But
and
today,
not kicking somebody into submission, because that would be the beginning of the end of democracy.
But today, racism is still rampant everywhere in the world, including the United States, and some people say, in particular, the USA. So, how do you advise your fellow Americans?
I do ask people to wake up very much in a Buddhist way and look around you and find the bigot in you. Because if you want to save the world, the only one you can change is you. Have you ever tried someone and succeeded? No.
I tried to change my father, didn't succeed. I tried to change my uncle, I didn't succeed. And the problem is, Edith, sometimes I try to change myself and I don't succeed. So any advice for me, Dr. Eger, as the psychologist?
Are you a realist or an idealist?
It's a little bit of both in me.
And don't mix your romanticism with realism, because the romanticist will look for something that maybe doesn't exist, and they can give up very soon, rather than realize that there is a gap between expectation and reality. And sometimes those expectations are unrealistic. That's why people marry someone they don't know. Just like Romeo and Juliet, They don't know each other. They are in love. And in love has nothing to do with love. It's a chemical high that people get from chocolate. So love is my definition of love is the ability to let go.
Well, you mentioned one time, I believe, that romantic love of young couples never lasts more than 18 months.
Just about.
So, what do
And
you do after 18 months? Give up and divorce, or what do you do?
I think you learn to negotiate and compromise. You learn give and take and tolerating differences, that I can be I and you can be you, but together we're going to be stronger than me alone and you alone. And they
Uh,
become a couple, and they don't do anything at the other person's expense. No masters, no slaves. So you have to be emotionally and financially independent before you get married.
and remain so after you get married?
After you get married, even more so. And women and men, just like the pioneer woman, worked alongside with the husband. And I
If,
think it's happening many times. Young couple now go to the Lamaze method together, and the father goes in with the wife in the birthing room and picks up a little girl and bonds with that little girl naked, and that man will never ever touch that little girl inappropriately. I like that.
can I, do you mind my asking a little personal question? Uh, am I correct that you got married, you got a divorce, and then you remarried the same man?
Right.
What was that experience like, and what did you learn from that that you can teach the rest of us?
Well, when I got married, I was very lonely. I was very skinny, and I was very hungry. And this man bought me Hungarian salami. I didn't know who I married. So I became either his mother or his child, or the other way around. The child would ask, Father, why is the moon blue? And he automatically said, go ask your mother. He passes the buck to me. And then I become the disciplinarian. So when I divorced my husband, I didn't go back to him. I grew up. I became a woman to a man. No, I didn't go back to him. There is no going back. It's just a matter of time. You're going to go right back into a pattern. I think it takes courage to become your own good person. You become a good parent to you, and ask yourself, what am I doing now? And is it getting me closer to a person or away from a person? Do I want to go towards that person? And then you let that other person know how you feel, what you want, by using the I feel, I think, I would like, I am willing, rather than we should, we have to. There is no we until there is an I. And the I is the only one that ever existed. There'll never, ever be another you, another me. We are unique, one of a kind diamonds. So I bet on negotiating and learning how to ask for what you want and learn to negotiate and compromise.
You mentioned something that I have never heard of in my life, Edith. I have heard of I love you. I have never heard of I love me. I love myself.
Yeah.
Can you help me do that?
Yes, honey.
What is the best way?
All you have to do is get up in the morning and look in a mirror and say, I love me. And I decide how I want to feel at night. You plan your life like one day. The morning sunshine doesn't come back. See, that's why it's so important, hopefully, to write the book, because people would ask me to write a book, and I said, I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. I would say that year after year, until Philip Zimbardo, who wrote the foreword to my choice, he said that the people who survived and famous are all men. We need a female voice. And my book, The Choice, is a female voice of Viktor Frankl. But I'm not Viktor Frankl because a medical doctor in Auschwitz and I was a 16-year-old in love. We had a very different mentality. But yet we both used the same skill. He said, I closed my eye and I imagined myself in a Viennese lecture hall lecturing about the psychology of the concentration camp. And I said, I too closed my eyes. And I pretended that the music was Tchaikovsky and I was dancing the Romeo and Juliet at the Budapest Opera House.
Do you think that if without your experience having passed through Holocaust, would you still think the same way as you do today? How you look at yourself, how you look at other people?
I think change is synonymous with growth. I like the idea of the choice, and my daughter calls it Edism. So I give you a couple. Are you revolving or are you evolving? I usually wear butterflies. I like the idea of the metamorphosis, and then you shed the chrysalis so you can fly freely like a butterfly. I like the whole idea that we are not revolving, but evolving.
Can I ask you another two questions? One is, why did you become a psychologist?
I always was very curious, and I wanted to study what makes us tick, you know. And even today, I am very curious, and I want to know what's going to happen next.
My last question before I open to the audience. Do you think that Holocaust can happen again today?
I think it's very possible if we don't stop what's going on now, that we are going to unfortunately promote fascism. The people who attacked the Capitol June 6th are very ripe for fascism. They wore shirts. 6 million was not enough. I think we have the making if we allow not to question authority and don't ever blindly adhere to authority. And that's what Plato said. You have to think of a lie, and it has to be a big one, and then you repeat it until people believe it. So our biggest enemy is ignorance. People are too lazy to question authority. So I go to schools and I put it on the board, I can't. And then I take the apostrophe and the T, I can. Why? Because I think I can. Just like the choo-choo train, I think I can. And pick an arrow that you follow, that you become in charge of your thinking your feeling, and your behavior. So pay attention what you're paying attention to. Pay attention what you're focusing on, that it is in alignment to get you closer to your freedom and to give birth to the you that was meant to be the free spirit. But don't try to follow anybody ever, because you're not that person.
Edith, I have a lot of questions here. Let me just take a few of them. One is, what worries you the most today in society? In particular in America, I may add.
What worries you the most today in society?
But
What worries you?
I don't like the word worry, because worry is neurotic, and you never worry about good things happening. So I don't live with worries. I do everything in my power that is humanly possible, and let people know what happens when good people do bad things. So I don't go into worry, and I don't go into guilt, because when I'm guilty, I just need to tell myself, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done things very differently, because my parents had tickets to go to America, and they didn't. So guilt is in the past, worry is in the future, and the only thing I have control of is you and I right here, right now. I live in the present, and I think young, but not
Very
young
good.
and foolish.
And you think young and you look young. Very, very good. Here's another question. Do you have any suggestion to help heal the deep political divisions and hatred among the two parties to save America today?
I don't have time for politics. I don't.
Very good. I like
I
it.
really don't have times. I'm hoping to save lives. I'm hoping for people to give birth to someone who they love and who is going to have a goal in life, who are willing to risk. That's a very good word. When you risk, you suffer. But I rather risk and suffer than not risk at all.
There's
I
another
don't live
question.
in fear. I
Please.
don't live in fear.
There's another question on anti-Semitism today.
Yes,
As we all know, on the campuses in the United States, it's everywhere.
everywhere.
It must worry you a lot. What can be done?
Show up. Show up.
Show up.
Show up. And ask the people for evidence.
Evidence.
Evidence. All the Jews are rich. You know, there are many poor Jews, and I was one of them. I came to America penniless. I didn't have $6 to get off the boat. And look at me now. I went to school, but I'm not going to tell people, be like I am or do what I do, because the Black people didn't have the opportunities as I did to go to schools and learn Latin and Greek and all the kind of things that they say, pull them up with the boots, but I don't have any boots. So, and any behavior has a secondary gain. I look for the secondary gain, because you cannot be a victim without a victimizer. And sometimes couples do that. One is the victim and one is the victimizer, and they go back and forth, a lot of the times. So as a couple, it's very important how they can truly learn how to negotiate and compromise. It's a business deal. Second marriage, you have to go to a lawyer and write a prenuptial agreement. And then you don't talk about money anymore. Couples talk about sex, money, and in-laws a lot of the times.
Here's a question that is out of the blue. It says, have you been to China? What are your thoughts on the country and the people? There are many similarities between Chinese and Jewish culture, and there's a lot of intermarriage as well. So have you been to China, Edith?
I've been in Hong Kong, and
That's
I
part of
went
China.
over to China, yes, but I didn't study the Chinese people. My son-in-law got the Nobel Prize in economics, and he has a lot of connection to China.
Wow.
His name is Robert Engel, Engle. You want to interview him because he travels all over the world, and especially China. And he could tell you much more than I can.
And he is your son-in-law.
My
Wow.
son-in-law, Robert Engel, a professor at NYU, New York University. Yes.
So what is your daughter doing?
She was going to school and another school and another school, and she has a doctorate in psychology, and she's a brilliant psychologist, and she has an office on Park Avenue in New York, and people stand in line to get to her. She's a brilliant, especially sports psychology. She consults the NFL, yes.
Wow.
Sports psychology and child psychology. She's the girl who came to America when she was 2 years old. See, what happens, an immigrant's child actually become parentized. They become parents to the parents who don't speak English, who don't know peanut butter, who don't know tuna fish, who doesn't know any of the American hot dogs. And so that's why it's very important for children of immigrants to ask, when did your childhood end? Because that child, you become mommy's little man. And you take the old ladies across the street and they say, look at my son. But you don't even know that your childhood, where did it go?
You have grandchildren, Edith?
I have 7 great-grandsons.
Oh, gosh.
This is my Christmas card.
Oh, that's nice.
I have
Very good.
I have twins.
Wow. 7
That's
great.
my thanks to Hitler.
You have 7 great-grandchildren.
Yes.
Are you Chinese? There's not that many Jews around. There's only what, 15 million or 14 million? 7. Oh gosh. Have you been have you been to Israel much?
I've been all over the world, actually. I've been to Bali. I've been to New Zealand. I traveled Japan, of course, and Israel, everywhere. I now love the Zoom because I don't have to get dressed. All I have to put on is an expensive scarf. It's called a
beautiful.
It's called Escara. It's here somewhere. Escara. Here it is.
Wow.
And
I'm glad
anyway,
my wife is not here. She will ask for one from me.
well, my father was a tailor and he became a couturier. And he said, when you grow up, you'll be the best dressed gal in town.
You
So
seem to be still the same today, Edith. You haven't been able to kick that habit.
Look at me now. Yes.
Very good. Now, here is a very interesting comment. Can I read it to you? Thank you, Dr. Eger. When my husband was murdered, I read Deuteronomy 30:19 and saw, choose life so that your children may live. This is from Beth Buchester. You have any advice for this lady? Her husband was murdered, and she read Deuteronomy 30:19 that says, choose life so that your children may live.
Yeah.
Any advice for this lady?
I think the Spirit is the biggest gift that we can have in life. And the Spirit is there when I'm born. The Spirit is there when I die. And that's what my sister told me when I was told that my parents are burning. My sister said the Spirit never dies. And that is so true. That is so very true, that we can be miserable or happy. It's my choice. But it is very important for you and I to let go of the part in us that is not able to let go of the black pages of history. I don't let it go either, but I don't live there. I don't set up household there. I never forget what happened or overcome it. I came to terms with it. I call it my cherished wound because part of me was left in Auschwitz, not the better part.
Would you agree with this statement that we forgive but don't forget?
Yes.
I suppose
Yes.
we cannot forget some of the things, or perhaps we should not forget some of the things.
Not forget what happened. What we want to do is prevent and learn from history. George Santayana said that if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it. I think it's time to shift gears, and it's time to release the part in us. It's time to shift gears and do the same thing.
And you mentioned,
You do the same thing, but you look at it from a different way. So the problem becomes a challenge. So crisis becomes a transition. So in your midlife, that's what people are facing. What you're holding on to and what are you willing to let go of? And give up the need for approval of other people. No one rejects you but you.
so don't
So-
reject yourself.
So if someone calls you a name, you this and you that, and you just say, thank you for your opinion. It takes two to fight. It takes one to stop it. Just say, thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your opinion. Don't raise your voice. Don't deny, and don't defend yourself. You're going to be defeated.
I think what you have just said, Edith, ought to be framed in everybody's bedroom. I think the world will be a better place if we can practice what you have just said. I wonder, Roland, would you like to add some questions to
we have-
Edith?
Yes, we have like some more questions here from our viewers and participants, and one that is like that I think which they're curious about is basically, can you tell us a little bit about the life before the Holocaust? What was it like in your family? And in your writings, you mentioned a couple of things that your parents taught you that made it possible for you to survive. Can you share some of those insights?
Well, you know, Passover and Easter is coming now. And we had Passover. My sister Clara wasn't there. She was in Budapest. And her Christian professor smuggled her out and hid her in his home. So there we were, my mother, my father, Magda, and I. And when we were finished, my father got up and kissed us on our heads. And the following morning, we were picked up.
So what happened to...
Last Passover that I had with my parents. So every year on Passover, I cry a lot. And I'm very sorry to tell you that there is no forgiveness without rage. You got to go through the rage. I think God allows us to go through the rage as long as we don't get stuck in there. You're going through the valley of the shadow of death. I think that's very, very true. That some people are using yes, but. And I say, give me the but, I give you an and. Yes, and. Whatever happened, I made it. So it's not why me, but what now? No one can take away from you. No one can take away what my mother told me in the carol car. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what's going to happen. Just remember, no one can take away from you what you put in your mind. And that is the best thing I can tell you today, that what you think, you create.
Isn't that what your mother told you, the last word you heard from her in the cattle car?
The carol car. She held me and she said, honey, we don't know where we're going. We don't know what's going to happen. And you know what? Exactly that's what happened. Everything was taken away from me. I had my mind and I had my sister. If you were just for the me, you didn't make it. We had to form a family, just like you and I. If I would speak to you Hungarian right now, and you would speak to me in Chinese, I don't know whether we would go very far because neither of us speak each other's mother tongue. But that's why I wanted to go back to Auschwitz to honor my mother. And I told my sister, I want to go back to the lions, then I want to look at the lion in the face. I want to reclaim my innocence, and I can't do that in a therapist's office. And the best thing I've done for me and the work I do now, I take your little hand and we visit the places where you've been. And then I came to get you wherever you are in your little room, and I take you out of there. And we turn the corner and you become your parent. So when
Edith?
I asked her to come with me, she told me I'm stupid. She told me, she felt sorry for me, how stupid you can be to go back to that place.
How did
You do it your way.
How did Magda deal with it? She did not go back.
She didn't.
Did she deal with her past in a reasonably well way?
No, it was not her. She just
forget about it.
Totally forget about it.
Okay. What happened to Clara? I know that time is up, Edith. I'm curious. Your older sister, Clara, she went to the music conservatory, so she was not sent together with you, Magda, and your parents to the death camp. Did she made it through the war and then live on happily?
What happened when I came back from Vienna to Prague, I saw advertisement that my sister is giving a concert. And that's how I found out that she's alive. And she waited for my sister and I to show up. And she became my mother.
Wow.
She became a violinist with the Sydney Symphony.
Wonderful.
And
Wonderful.
she took me to the opera house and put me in the Queen's place so I can watch Romeo and Juliet with Baryshnikov.
Did she live long? Did Clara live long?
She had Alzheimer's for
Oh.
10 years. 10 years. It's a
So
very
she's
long goodbye. Very long.
so you and Magda are the two that live very long. Anyway, because of the time, we have to stop here. Edith, I just want to tell you what a great pleasure it has been for me to speak with you, and I think that all our audience have learned a lot from you. I like what you said. Stop the but, and sometimes you have to start the end. Don't just say but sometimes you have to say and. You and me, and him and her, and all of us. So I hope that your spirit will live on, Edith, that many of the younger generation will learn from you and be able to be better people. They learn to love themselves. They learn not to victimize themselves and be able to make the world a better place. Hopefully, the next generation will be better than ours and better than the last. Edith, it is our great honor to have you. Thank you for joining us. Come to Hong Kong,
My high
China.
kick.
I will see you again.
Wait, the high kick.
Wow. Woo. You saw the cake?
I like
Wow.
it.
Thank you very much, Edith.
Thank
You can kick better than I do. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Amazing.